Thanks very much for staying with us. Time now for Eye on Africa with me, Georgia Calvin-Smith. Tonight, as tensions continue to spiral over the rebel conflict in eastern DR Congo, the country's leader and his Rwandan counterpart, who's accused of pulling the strings of the M23 Congolese insurgents, agreed to attend an emergency regional summit in Tanzania about the deadly fighting. That's due to happen at the end of the week. Also, a South African minister accuses Donald Trump of awkwardly trying to bully smaller countries after the US president threatens to cut funding over alleged land confiscations in South Africa. And Nigeria's Afrobeat sensation, Tems, is cleaning up. The star wins her second Grammy, seeing off a lineup of heavily populated by her countrymen of creators vying for the Best African Musical Performance category. But first, northeast DR Congo began another turbulent week amidst a shifting conflict. The Rwanda-backed M23 rebels, who last week took control of most of Goma, the capital of North Kivu province, declared a unilateral ceasefire on Monday, citing humanitarian grounds. But what that means in practice is unclear. The statement claims the insurgents don't want to capture other key cities, but just days ago, they'd been advancing on Bukavu in South Kivu. In Beni, North Kivu, demonstrators on Monday protested against the escalation in the M23's offensive.
As traditional chiefs, we're against losing 1 metre of land to neighbouring countries.
We want to show Kagame that we, the youth of Beni, and the people of Beni in general are strong. Kagame doesn't take us seriously, so we're ready to fight against his army.
I'm not afraid. In fact, I'm ready for it now. I'm asking the commander of the police to give us weapons later. We need to go to Libero until the M23 return home. They're not Congolese.
Well, as you heard there, many of the demonstrators accuse Rwanda of being behind the conflict. At least 900 people died as the M23 clashed with Congolese forces as it took Goma last week. The leaders of both DR Congo and Rwanda are due to attend an emergency regional summit on the Congolese crisis at the end of the week. That's due to be held in Tanzania. Meanwhile, our Emmett Livingston tells us more about conditions in Goma under the M23 on Monday.
Over the weekend in Goma, the streets were full of people sweeping up debris and clearing up rubbish. The M23 had ordered residents to do this, and the vast majority obeyed. Some people told us that they were scared not to. The Tutsi-led M23 rebels, backed by Rwandan troops, took control of most of Goma last week after days of vicious combat with Congolese defenders. It's now moving quickly to set up a parallel administration in the city of over 2 million people. Things have already begun to change. With the worst of the fighting now over, many displaced people who were sheltering around Goma are trying to leave.
We don't have a choice. Because here, we don't have houses. My house is in Ruchuru, and also people in the village say that peace has returned, so we're going back.
The displacement camps around Goma at their peak held nearly 800,000 people who lived in unimaginably dire conditions. The M23 has been urging people to leave. It's not clear how many people have left since the fighting has stopped, but we saw some camps that had been completely emptied. On Monday, thousands of people were also loading into trucks and preparing to take the road. While most fighting has stopped in Goma, there are fears that the M23 may push further into neighbouring South Kivu province. The UN has warned that the rebels may make a push towards the province's largest city, Bukavu.
Now, a deadly artillery strike in Sudan's Khartoum state has killed 54 people and wounded at least 158. The paramilitary Rapid Support Forces have been blamed for the attack, although they deny this. Now, it, though, is on one side of Sudan's devastating civil war with the army. Since April 2023, tens of thousands of people have been killed, and the country's been plunged into the world's worst humanitarian disaster. Olivia Bizot talks us through.
The attack took place at a market in Omdurman, which is just across the River Nile from Sudan's capital, Khartoum. Witnesses said that the shelling came from the western part of Omdurman, which is under the control of the paramilitary Rapid Support Forces. They also said that it was supported by drones. Now, the attack has been blamed on the RSF, though they've denied these accusations. Medics on the ground at a nearby hospital described tragic scenes of chaos. MSF sent us this video shortly after the attack took place.
What we have seen unfold before our eyes in this hospital over the last few hours has been nothing other than horrendous. I've witnessed the scenes of utter carnage in the emergency room, which is just a few meters behind me. There are dozens and dozens of people whose lives have been torn apart, who have lost loved ones and are seeking critical care at this very moment.
In the past few weeks, the army has really stepped up its offensive in the capital with the objective of regaining complete control of Khartoum from the RSF. But the attack on Saturday took place the day after RSF leader Hemedti pledged to retake complete control from the army. Now, this isn't the first time that civilians have been caught in the crossfire. Since the conflict began in April of 2023, both sides have been accused of targeting civilians and shelling residential areas.
Well, South African leaders have offered to explain the country's land reform policy to US President Donald Trump after he waded into one of the country's most divisive issues. Now, he threatened to cut funding to Pretoria, accusing it of arbitrarily confiscating land and, without specifying, of doing terrible things, horrible things. While it's not exactly clear what Trump was talking about, it is presumed that he was referring to the Expropriation Act. The government's been quick to slam the US leaders' tough yet imprecise talk.
We're not a province of the United States. We're a sovereign state. And if there's an issue they want to raise with us, they must talk to us. We're engaged diplomatically. We take decisions collectively. But bullying us should not be tolerated by us at any time.
Now, South African analyst Anne Wenzel joins us now with more. Anne, so what is Trump talking about and why?
So basically, I believe he's referring to the expropriation bill, which was signed by South African President Cyril Ramaphosa on the 23rd, 24th of January. And basically, this bill makes it possible to expropriate land without compensation in specific circumstances, and where any attempts to mediate and reach an agreement have fallen on deaf ears. Nothing has happened, nothing has worked. The South African president today released a media statement where he basically says there has been no confiscation, which is true. I mean, Trump is talking as if confiscation is happening and ongoing. I'm going to just read a little bit out of the President Cyril Ramaphosa's media release today. And he says, "We look forward to engaging with the Trump administration over our land reform policy and issues of bilateral interest. We are certain that out of those engagements, we will share a better and common understanding over these matters." So clearly he is saying that Trump needs to learn more about something before he kind of just goes off and says what he's thinking or what someone has told him, because this is not the case on the ground. And in fact, South Africa has a long history of trying to redistribute land which was taken away by force, starting in 1950, when some 3.5 million Black South Africans were removed from their ancestral lands and moved to Bantustans and homelands, much like in America, the First Nation Native Americans were moved to reservations. So since the ANC came into power, now obviously they're sharing the GNU, but for the last 30 years they were in power and they've been trying to effect this the land change and redistribution. But it's been a very, very slow process and very convoluted because they use the willing buyer, willing seller model, which is from the expropriation bill of 1975, which they've now amended in January. But the 1975 bill comes still from the apartheid era. and requests a willing buyer and necessitates a willing buyer, willing seller. So some people have not been willing to sell, the government being the willing buyer in this instance. And we find ourselves in 2025 still in a situation where 8% of the South African population is white, but farmland is held by, 8% of South African population is white, but 3/4 of farmland is owned by white people, and 80% of the population is black, but 4% of freehold farmland is owned by them. So this is also where the ANC comes in, because all this land has not been redistributed because the willing seller is problematic. And they're trying to kind of fast track this.
Unfortunately, that is all the time that we have for that. But thank you so much for painstakingly talking us through, at least briefly, scratching the surface of some pretty complex challenges faced by South Africa, and perhaps some work that needs to be done on the part of other leaders to get to grips with the nuance there. Well, finally, in happier news, Nigeria's Afrobeats sensation Thames is cleaning up. The Stars won her second Grammy, seeing off a lineup that's heavily populated by her Nigerian countrymen, of creatives vying for the Best African Musical Performance category. She clinched the win with the hit Love Me JJ. It's racked up at least 20 million views online. Her first Grammy win, though, was in 2023 with her single with Drake, Wait For You.
I feel blessed, and I feel like as much as I think, I have something and I'm talented and I have all these gifts, there's so many talented African young artists in Africa that are going to come out and even do more than me. And I feel like it's some kind of crazy, weird blessing to be someone that inspires someone that is looking at me right now and thinking I could do that too.
So she keeps on slaying after having struck out on her own, having left Drake behind. So we'll leave you with her winning sound. Thanks for joining us, and do so again if you can. Till then, take care.
I'm on your vibe now. You got me on your side now. Yeah, I'm on your wave right now.